3 years ago, I thought I had everything. A beautiful wife named Sarah, a close relationship with my younger brother, Marcus, and what I believed was a loving, supportive family. I was Thomas, 35 years old, living what seemed like the American dream in Seattle. Then one phone call changed everything, revealing a betrayal so deep it shattered my world. But the most painful part was not the betrayal itself. It was discovering how my own parents reacted when they learned the truth. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button if you have ever felt betrayed by someone close to you. And do not forget to subscribe because I share real stories about overcoming life challenges. Trust me, what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. I had built what I thought was the perfect life. As a software engineer in Seattle, I earned a comfortable six-figure salary that allowed Sarah and me to live in a beautiful two-story house in the suburbs. Sarah worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and we had been married for 8 wonderful years after meeting in college. We often talked about starting a family, maybe buying a bigger house, taking those European vacations we always planned. My younger brother Marcus was 32 and worked in marketing. He was the charming one in the family, always quick with jokes and stories that made everyone laugh at family gatherings. Marcus was still single, which our parents constantly worried about, but he seemed content with his bachelor lifestyle. What I loved most about our relationship was how close we were. Marcus would come over for dinner at least twice a week, and whenever he hit rough patches financially or needed a place to stay between apartments, Sarah and I always opened our doors. Our parents, Robert and Linda, lived about 3 hours south in Oregon. Dad worked as a high school principal until his retirement 2 years earlier, and Mom had been a librarian her whole career. They were proud of both their sons, but I always felt like I was the responsible one, the one they bragged about to their friends. Thomas has such a good head on his shoulders, Mom would say. He takes care of everyone. That last part was truer than I realized at the time. Over the years, I had lent Marcus money for car repairs, helped him with rent when he was between jobs, and even co-signed a loan for him once. Sarah sometimes questioned whether I was being too generous, but I always defended him. He is my brother, I would tell her. Family takes care of family. The first signs that something was wrong started about 6 months before everything fell apart. Sarah began working more night shifts at the hospital, claiming they were short-staffed. She became distant, less interested in our conversations about the future, less affectionate. When I tried to plan date nights or weekend getaways, she always had an excuse. "I am exhausted from work," she would say, or "maybe next month when things slow down." Marcus also started acting differently around the same time. Instead of his regular visits, he would make excuses not to come over. When he did visit, he seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact and leaving earlier than usual. He stopped joining us for family barbecues and holiday preparations. When I asked him about it, he claimed he was busy with a new project at work and was dating someone he was not ready for us to meet yet. I was so focused on a major software launch at my company that I did not pay enough attention to these changes. I worked late most nights sometimes, not getting home until 9 or 10 in the evening. Sarah would already be asleep or getting ready for her night shift, so we barely saw each other. I told myself this was just a busy period that would pass once my project was complete. One Thursday afternoon, I finished work early and decided to surprise Sarah with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Marcus's silver Honda parked on the street in front of our house. I felt a moment of happiness, thinking it would be nice to have dinner with both of them. But when I walked through the front door calling out their names, the house was silent. "Sarah, Marcus," I called again, setting the food on the kitchen counter. I heard water running upstairs and assumed Sarah was in the shower. But where was Marcus? His car was outside, but he was nowhere to be found. When Sarah came downstairs 20 minutes later, her hair damp and wearing a robe, she seemed startled to see me. "You are home early," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I brought dinner. I saw Marcus's car outside." "Where is he?" "Oh, he stopped by to borrow some money for his rent. He left through the back door because he was in a hurry." Her explanation felt forced, and something in her voice made my stomach tighten with suspicion. That night I could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. 2 weeks later, my worst fears were confirmed in the most devastating way possible. I wish I could say I confronted them directly, but the truth is I became suspicious and started paying closer attention. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday evening when Sarah's phone buzzed with a text while she was in the shower. The screen lit up on the nightstand next to me, and I saw Marcus's name with a preview that made my blood run cold. Cannot wait to see you tonight. Tom is working late again. My hands shaking, I picked up the phone. Sarah never locked it because she trusted me completely, just as I had trusted her. What I found in their message history destroyed 8 years of marriage and 35 years of brotherhood in the span of 10 minutes. The messages went back 6 months. 6 months of, I love you, and when can we be together, and this is killing me, but I cannot stay away from you. They had pet names for each other. They shared intimate details about their relationship, their plans to be together, their guilt about betraying me, and their rationalization that they could not help falling in love. The most recent messages revealed they had rented an apartment across town and were planning to tell me everything the following week. Sarah was going to ask for a divorce, and Marcus was going to help me understand that they belonged together. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the phone, feeling like I was drowning. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my family, was built on lies. The woman I had loved since college, who I had supported through nursing school, who I had dreamed of having children with, had been living a double life for half a year. And my brother, the person I had protected and provided for, had been the one taking her away from me. For 2 weeks, I said nothing. Instead, I hired a private investigator and gathered evidence. I needed to know the full extent of their betrayal, and I needed proof that could not be denied or explained away. The photos the investigator brought me were like daggers to my heart, Marcus and Sarah holding hands as they walked into their secret apartment, kissing in restaurant booths, shopping for furniture together like a happy couple. The confrontation happened on a Friday night, when Marcus came over for what he thought was just another casual dinner. Sarah was working a night shift, or so she claimed. When she walked through the front door at 8:30 and saw Marcus already sitting at our kitchen table, both of their faces went white. "Sit down, Sarah," I said calmly, placing a manila envelope on the table between them. "We need to talk." I had rehearsed this moment, but nothing could have prepared me for the actual experience of watching two people I loved try to lie their way out of the truth. Sarah's first instinct was complete denial. "I do not know what you think you know, but you are wrong," she said, her voice shaking. Marcus just sat there in silence, staring at his hands. I opened the envelope and spread the photographs across the table. "These were taken over the past 2 weeks," I said. "Would you like to explain them?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, Marcus looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "I am sorry, bro," he said. "I never meant for this to happen. We fell in love. These things happen sometimes." Those words hit me like a physical blow. "These things happen," I repeated. "You are talking about my wife, my marriage, my life." Sarah found her voice then, and what she said made everything worse. "You were never home, Thomas. Always working, always putting your career first. Marcus was there for me when you were not. He listened to me, cared about my feelings." I felt a rage building inside me that I had never experienced before. "So this is my fault. I worked hard to provide for us to build a future together, and that gave you permission to betray me with my own brother." "It is not about permission," Marcus said. "We tried to fight it, but we cannot help how we feel about each other." I stood up from the table, my whole body trembling. "Get out," I said quietly. "Both of you, get out of my house right now and do not come back." Sarah started crying. "Thomas, please. We can work through this. Maybe we can find a way to." "Get out," I shouted louder than I had ever shouted in my life. They left that night, and I thought the worst of my pain was over. I was wrong. The real betrayal was yet to come. The next morning, I called my parents. Despite everything that had happened, I still believed they would support me, that they would be as horrified by Marcus's actions as I was. Dad answered the phone with his usual cheerful greeting. "Tommy, how are you doing, son?" "Dad, I need to tell you something terrible." I explained everything: the affair, the lies, the secret apartment, the confrontation. I could hear Mom crying in the background as Dad repeated parts of the story to her. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Dad asked. "I mean, are you certain there is not some misunderstanding?" "I have photographs, Dad. Text messages. They admitted it to my face." "Oh God," he whispered. "This is going to destroy our family." "Not This is terrible for you, or how could they do this to you, but this is going to destroy our family. Even then, I should have known where their priorities lay. Mom got on the phone sobbing. Thomas, this is awful. Just awful. But Marcus is still your brother. You two have always been so close. There has to be a way to work through this. Work through this. I could not believe what I was hearing. Mom, he had an affair with my wife. They have been planning to leave me. There is nothing to work through. Family is everything, honey, she said. Maybe if everyone just takes some time to cool down. Dad decided they needed to drive up to Seattle to help the family heal. I was grateful because I thought that meant they were coming to support me through the divorce and help me deal with Marcus's betrayal. I was so naive. They arrived 2 days later and immediately arranged what they called a family meeting at my house. To my shock and horror, they had contacted both Sarah and Marcus and invited them to attend. When I saw my brother and soon-to-be ex-wife sitting on my couch flanked by my parents like they were the victims in need of protection, I felt a betrayal even deeper than the affair itself. Dad took charge of the meeting like he was mediating a school dispute. "We are all family here," he began. "What happened is unfortunate, but families work through these things together. Marcus, you made a mistake, but you are still our son. Sarah, you are still part of our family too." I sat across from them, stunned. A mistake? This went on for 6 months. They rented an apartment together. They were planning to leave me. Mom reached over and took Marcus's hand. Marcus has been crying for 2 days. He feels terrible about what happened. We all make mistakes when we are confused about our feelings. "You are still our son too," Dad said to me, "but you need to find a way to forgive your brother. Holding on to anger will only hurt you in the long run." Marcus looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I know I messed up, Thomas. I know I hurt you. But I love her, and she loves me. We did not plan for it to happen this way. That makes it worse, not better," I said. Sarah spoke for the first time since they arrived. "I am willing to try marriage counseling, Thomas. If you can forgive Marcus, and we can all find a way to move forward as a family." I looked around the room at these 4 people who were supposed to love me most in the world and realized I was completely alone. They were not there to support me through the worst betrayal of my life. They were there to convince me to accept it. "I want all of you out of my house," I said quietly. "Thomas," Dad said in his stern, principal voice, "you are being unreasonable." "I am being unreasonable. My brother sleeps with my wife for 6 months, and I am being unreasonable for not wanting to forgive him." "He is still your brother," Mom pleaded. "We raised you boys to take care of each other." I stood up and walked to the front door, opening it wide. "The only person who needs to leave is me, because this is not my family anymore." As they filed out, Mom turned back to me, with tears streaming down her face. "Do not do something you will regret forever, Thomas. Family is all we have in this world." "Then I guess I do not have anything," I replied, and closed the door behind them. For the next 3 months, my parents called every few days trying to convince me to reconcile with Marcus. Each conversation followed the same pattern. They would start by asking how I was doing, then gradually shift to talking about how sorry Marcus was, how difficult this situation was for him, and how I needed to be the bigger person and forgive him. Marcus lost his job because of all the stress from this situation, Mom told me during one particularly painful call. "He is barely eating. He looks terrible." "Good," I said, and she gasped like I had said something unforgivable. "Thomas Robert Johnson," she said, using my full name like when I was a child. "I did not raise you to be so hard-hearted." Dad's approach was different, but equally infuriating. "Your brother is going through the hardest time of his life," he told me. "Sarah broke up with him last week. She said she cannot handle the guilt and wants to try to work things out with you. Marcus is devastated. She wants to work things out with me," I laughed bitterly. "Tell her I said no. Tell her to stay away from me forever. You are being stubborn, son. This is your chance to save your marriage and rebuild your relationship with your brother." My marriage was destroyed the day she started sleeping with Marcus. There is nothing left to save. What hurt the most was that my parents continued having family dinners and holiday celebrations with Marcus and Sarah, just without me. I found out through mutual friends that they had hosted Thanksgiving at their house with both of them in attendance. When I confronted Mom about it, she said, "Well, you would not come, and they are still part of our family too." The breaking point came in February, 4 months after I had discovered the affair. Dad called me on a Tuesday evening, and for once he did not start with small talk. "Son, we have a family emergency," he said, his voice more serious than I had heard it in months. "What kind of emergency?" "Marcus is in legal trouble. Sarah has decided to file for divorce from you and press charges against Marcus for some kind of harassment. He needs money for a lawyer, and we cannot cover it all ourselves." My stomach dropped. "How much money?" $15,000. I was quiet for so long that Dad thought the call had dropped. "Thomas, are you there? You called me for the first time in weeks to ask for money for Marcus. It is not for Marcus. It is for our family. You are doing well financially, and you are the only one who can help right now. This is what families do for each other. Families do not sleep with each other's wives, Dad. That is in the past. We need to focus on the present crisis. Marcus could go to jail if he cannot afford proper legal representation." The rage that had been building for months finally exploded. "Let me get this straight. For 4 months you have been calling to tell me I need to forgive Marcus and take back the wife who cheated on me. You invited them to family holidays while excluding me. And now you want me to pay for his lawyer so he can fight the consequences of his own actions. You are his brother," Dad said, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. "We raised you to take care of each other. Where was that philosophy when he was taking care of my wife behind my back?" Mom got on the phone then. "Thomas, please. We are not asking for much. You make good money, and this would help the whole family move forward. If I do not pay for his lawyer, what happens?" "He might have to use a public defender," she said, like it was a death sentence. "Then he can use a public defender." Thomas, Dad's voice was hard. "Now, if you do not help your brother in his time of need, then do not bother considering yourself part of this family anymore." The ultimatum hung in the air between us. They were asking me to choose between my self-respect and my family, and they clearly expected me to choose them. In that case, I said calmly, "I guess I am not part of this family anymore." I hung up the phone and immediately hired a private investigator to look into Marcus's financial situation and my parents' claims about the emergency. What I discovered 2 weeks later made their betrayal even worse than I had imagined. Marcus had not lost his job because of stress over the affair. He had been fired 8 months earlier for falsifying expense reports, which meant he had been lying to all of us even before the affair started. The reason he needed money for a lawyer was not harassment charges from Sarah, but because he was being investigated for embezzlement at his previous job. Even more shocking was what the investigator found about my parents' finances. Over the past 2 years, they had given Marcus more than $50,000 to cover his gambling debts. They had refinanced their house twice to get cash to help him, and now they were in danger of losing their home entirely. But the detail that hurt most was discovering that Sarah had never broken up with Marcus at all. They were still together, still living in their secret apartment, and she had never had any intention of reconciling with me. My parents had been lying about that too, probably hoping that if I paid for Marcus's lawyer, I might be more open to taking Sarah back. I was not just the family's bank account. I was their backup plan, the responsible son they could always count on to clean up Marcus's messes and subsidize his destructive lifestyle. And when I finally said no, they were willing to cut me off entirely rather than hold him accountable for his actions. I decided to give my family one last chance to do the right thing. I called a meeting at a restaurant halfway between Seattle and my parents' home in Oregon, neutral ground, where I could control the situation. I told them I had important information to share about Marcus's legal troubles and wanted to discuss how we could move forward as a family. All four of them showed up: Mom, Dad, Marcus, and Sarah. Seeing Sarah sitting next to Marcus at the restaurant table, both of them wearing matching nervous expressions, confirmed everything the investigator had told me about their ongoing relationship. I placed a manila envelope on the table just like I had done months earlier when I confronted them about the affair. But this time the contents were financial records, employment verification, and a detailed report about Marcus's gambling addiction and legal troubles. "Before we talk about family and forgiveness and financial help," I said calmly, "I want everyone to understand the truth about what has been happening." I went through it all systematically. Marcus's job loss 8 months before the affair began, the embezzlement investigation, the $50,000 my parents had already given him, the gambling debts, the lies about Sarah wanting to reconcile with me. As I spoke, I watched my parents' faces change from confusion to understanding to something that looked like shame. Marcus stared at his hands and said nothing. Sarah kept glancing toward the exit like she wanted to run. When I finished, Dad cleared his throat. Some of those details might be more complicated than you understand, he said weakly. Which details exactly, I asked. The part where Marcus has been lying to all of us for over a year. The part where you mortgaged your house to enable his gambling addiction. Or the part where you have been lying to me about Sarah wanting to come back, so I would be more willing to pay his legal fees. Mom started crying. We just wanted to keep the family together, she whispered. By lying to me, by asking me to forgive betrayal, and subsidize the consequences of Marcus's criminal behavior. Marcus finally looked up at me. I know I messed up everything, Thomas. I know you hate me, but I am still your brother. No, I said, standing up from the table. Brothers do not destroy each other's lives and then expect to be rewarded for it. Brothers do not embezzle money and lie about it to their families. Brothers do not sleep with each other's wives and then play the victim when there are consequences. I pulled out my business card for a social worker I had contacted and placed it on the table next to the financial documents. If you need help with housing or financial assistance, call this number. There are programs for seniors in financial trouble. Dad's face was red with anger. You are really going to abandon your parents over this. You abandoned me the day you chose to protect my betrayer instead of supporting your betrayed son. You made your choice. This is mine. Thomas, please. Mom reached across the table toward me, but I stepped back. We love you. We have always loved you. We just wanted everyone to be happy. Everyone except me, I said. I hope you find peace with your decisions, but not at my expense anymore. I left $50 on the table to cover the cost of their meals and walked away from my biological family for the last time. But this story is not about the family I lost. It is about the family I found. 6 months after cutting ties with my parents and Marcus, I moved to Portland and started fresh. I took a position with a tech startup that offered me equity and the chance to help build something meaningful from the ground up. I sold my house in Seattle and used the money to buy a smaller place near the mountains where I could hike and find peace. The most important decision I made was to start seeing a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Dr. Williams helped me understand that healing is not about forgetting or forgiving, but about setting boundaries that protect your well-being and learning to trust yourself again. Through volunteer work with a literacy program, I met Jennifer, a 29-year-old elementary school teacher with kind eyes and the most genuine laugh I had ever heard. She had grown up in a loving family that welcomed me like I had always belonged there. Her parents, David and Susan, treated me like a son from the day we met, and her 2 younger sisters adopted me as their big brother immediately. When Jennifer and I started dating, I was honest about my past and why I had no contact with my biological family. Instead of seeing it as a red flag, she admired my strength in setting boundaries and protecting myself from further harm. Family should lift you up, not tear you down, she said simply, and I knew I had found someone who understood what love actually looks like. 18 months later, I proposed to Jennifer during a hiking trip to the same mountain where I had first found peace after my divorce was finalized. We had a small wedding, surrounded by friends and her family people who had chosen to love and support us unconditionally. 2 years after that wedding, Jennifer and I welcomed our daughter Emma into the world. Holding that tiny, perfect baby in my arms, I finally understood what unconditional love actually feels like. It is not about owing someone forgiveness regardless of how they treat you. It is about creating a safe space where people can grow and thrive without fear of betrayal or manipulation. Our little family of 3 has grown into something beautiful and healthy, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Jennifer's parents are amazing grandparents to Emma, and her sisters are the most loving aunts I could imagine. This is what family is supposed to feel like. Last month, I received a phone call that brought my past back into focus one final time. Marcus had been sentenced to 2 years in prison for embezzlement, and my parents had lost their house. Dad called me from a number I did not recognize, probably because I had blocked their usual phones years ago. Thomas, he said when I answered, I know we have not spoken, but we need your help. We have nowhere to go. We are your parents. Hearing his voice after 3 years brought back all the old pain, but it also reminded me of how far I had come. I am sorry that your situation is difficult, I told him calmly, but I am not responsible for cleaning up the mess that Marcus created or the choices you made to enable him. But we are family, he said, and I could hear the desperation that had always been there when it came to Marcus. No, I replied. Family does not ask you to sacrifice your well-being to subsidize someone else's destructive behavior. Family does not choose the person who betrayed you over the person who was betrayed. You made your choice 3 years ago, and I made mine. I gave him the contact information for the same social worker I had tried to help them with years earlier, wished them well, and ended the call. Then I went upstairs to where Jennifer was reading a bedtime story to 2-year-old Emma, and I was reminded once again what real family looks like. The journey from betrayal to healing taught me that forgiveness does not mean accepting unacceptable behavior. It does not mean giving someone unlimited chances to hurt you. It does not mean prioritizing other people's comfort over your own safety and well-being. Real forgiveness, I learned, is about releasing the anger that was poisoning my own life while still maintaining the boundaries that protect me from further harm. I forgave Sarah and Marcus not because they deserved it, but because carrying that rage was hurting me more than it was hurting them. But forgiveness did not mean reconciliation, and it certainly did not mean financing the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who consistently choose to hurt you. Sometimes the family you create is more important than the family you were born into. Sometimes saying no to people who drain your energy and happiness is the only way to say yes to the life you deserve. I learned that you cannot change people who do not want to change, but you can choose who gets access to your life, your energy, and your resources. I learned that being the responsible one does not mean being responsible for everyone else's poor decisions. Most importantly, I learned that real love does not ask you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Today, as I sit in the living room of the home I built with Jennifer watching Emma play with blocks while her mother grades papers at the kitchen table, I am grateful for every painful lesson that led me here. The family that chose me is infinitely more valuable than the family that chose my betrayer over me. The greatest revenge against those who betrayed me was not anger or retaliation. It was building a life so full of genuine love and respect that their absence became a blessing rather than a loss. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your self-respect? Have you learned the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation in your own life? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming betrayal and building the life you deserve. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they deserve better than being treated as a backup plan by people who claim to love them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is choose yourself when nobody else will. Your peace of mind and happiness are worth protecting, even if it costs you relationships with people who do not truly value you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember that you deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your success instead of asking you to subsidize their failures.